Batgirl canceled. No, she didn't say anything nasty on Twitter. No, the whole movie has been scrapped. But how can that be? They shot the whole thing. Yes, they did. They're just going to go ahead and eat it on this one. Yeah. So here we are. Cosmic book news. Why not? It's everywhere. Apparently New York Post got the story, although they had some discrepancies there that weren't quite right overall. But not about the story about it getting canceled. That's spot on. Then I think Variety came out and confirmed it and all this stuff. So here we are with Matt McCloy, and he's kind of summing it up here. This whole shelving the flick. I doubt that it'll ever get released. And there's this also, I think, spells something very interesting about the fate of the Flash movie. But what a mess. All this stuff. And the big draw was the return of Michael Keaton. That was going to be the thing that would draw you to the Flash and to Batgirl. And the Batgirl movie was utterly dependent, plot-wise and all that stuff, on the Flash movie, despite the fact that the directors didn't know and asked about, well, how come Michael Keaton is Batman now? And don't worry, we've got a plan, just shoot the movie. They didn't have a plan. They just had that, the Flash movie has some time warp and universe merging shenanigans in it. And it has Michael Keaton back as Batman. And so they did some scenes. He was supposed to appear in the Aquaman movie. They recently let out that they've canned that as well. And Ben Affleck came in to reshoot those scenes. So there is a Bruce Wayne / Batman of some sort. I don't know if he actually appears as Batman in it, but certainly Bruce Wayne in the film and scenes with Aquaman, because apparently the plot doesn't work unless there's a Bruce Wayne in it. So they just got Ben Affleck to come in and do it because they're no longer relying on the universe-changing stuff of the Flash, because the Flash had to get delayed, so it won't come out until after Aquaman. So the Aquaman story wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Meanwhile, the Batgirl film remained in limbo. It had to come out after the Flash, unless there was a way to go in and shoot Ben Affleck as the Batman of this film. But apparently that was just asking too much. So they'll go through this. Matt McClung goes on that it was a woke movie. I haven't heard anything that makes it woke. I've heard it's bad, but there's the race swapping, I guess they'll go for as a woke thing. Apparently there was going to be a transgender roommate for Barbara Gordon. I think that is something they did recently in Batgirl comics, that sort of thing. But unless it's just all about it and preaching about it and everything, then that in and of itself is not necessarily woke. I mean, perhaps the intentions of the casting, you can make an argument, but other than that, not so much. Kinds of throw shade at the Ms. Marvel series, but only in the sense that it's the least watched Disney Plus show. That is true, which is odd, because it's the best one that the D Plus Marvel show ever done. Just objectively looking at it, plot, character development, all that stuff, they had it all. You know, the other shows, not so much. Not so much. The other shows are just crap compared to this one. And, but nobody watched it. And, it's quite a Mount Everest for that show to climb with all the stuff dragging it down. And then all the crap shows that preceded it. Probably just too late. So anyway, and this is the Birds of Prey writer, wrote Ms. Marvel. Well, Ms. Marvel got reshot a lot, apparently. So it could be that somebody else wrote it and some of the plot points remained, but yeah. So that's another thing that was done there to try to spruce that up, but not much else you could do. And then wrote The Flash. So been hearing the Flash movie tests very well, screen test wise. Not so much with Batgirl. So a lot of people are upfront about it. I heard this before. As some of the details, who is this? According to Twitter user viewer and on Michael Keaton only had 5 scenes in Batgirl. He didn't train Barbara. She just dressed up. She just dressed up as Batman for a Halloween party, stopped some terrorists, and tweaked the costume to be a superhero. Okay, so that's part of the plot there. So I guess this is just for a Halloween party and ends up stopping terrorists as a result and decides, hey, you know what? I could really do this. She's a police officer in the story, so I'm guessing that's part of her training. But I guess if you're going to say there's a wokeness in it, is that you can't have a man teach a woman anything. So that might be a woke point there. I don't know. But other than that, it's just sounding like this wasn't that good of a movie. He meets Barbara twice in the Batman. Keaton Batman meets her twice in the costume. First on the street telling her not to do this. Then in one of those big Tim Burton-y towers where he helps her with something she needs. The last scene of the movie was them teaming up and diving off of a gargoyle to fly around Gotham. Yeah, that's what I was hearing. There's not a lot of scenes of Keaton in this, which is why I thought, you could reshoot it with Ben Affleck, but they didn't. The best part that I heard about it is Brendan Fraser does an excellent job in this as the villain. Everyone liked him. Fraser consistently pointed to as the high point by all my sources. Firefly gets fired from his job and his health insurance is canceled, so he desperately turns back to crime in order to help his wife. Everyone really liked Brendan Fraser as Firefly. His backstory, he was a slower goon for a Gotham mob boss that went straight to support his son's political aspirations. So Firefly got a normal job to try and pay for his wife's health care. So, yeah, he's retired from a life of crime, and he got this normal job, but it won't pay for his wife's problems. So that's the motivation for him to go back to being Firefly. Killer Moth was a terrorist trying to kill Bruce Wayne. Firefly kills him soon after. Okay, so they have an appearance by Killer Moth in this as well. And Killer Moth goes back to Batgirl stories. There was actually a little short they shot for the Batman show with Yvonne Craig, like a test thing, and it was Killer Moth that was to be the villain of that scene. Anyway, so Twitter user says the cowl of Barbara Gordon's improved Batgirl suit that she uses. The movie is made from Catwoman's earlier test screening. Says Michelle Pfeiffer is the Catwoman of the universe, but she doesn't appear in the movie. And also that a Black Canary Easter egg is included in the yeah, I saw that. It was a bird on the poster. I don't know if that means anything. There was talk that she makes an appearance in the movie and that she would train Batgirl, but apparently that wasn't the case. Viewer Anon also adds that Stallone is not in the movie. I'd never heard that one, so I don't know, but apparently some people thought he was in it. The Dick Grayson Nightwing is not in the film. I'd heard that one. There was a rumor that, what's his name, Dylan O'Brien was playing him. Then there's another rumor that he's replacing Ezra Miller as the Flash. That J.K. Simmons is excellent as Gordon, of course. J.K. Simmons is a solid actor. And Ben Affleck was never in the movie. Collider Steven Weintraub says on Twitter that he spoke to people that saw Batgirl and said that it was a huge disappointment, and also that the costumes looked cheap, especially Keaton's Batman costume. Oh boy, can't mess up that. I mean, with hers, I just figured that this was the homemade costume that she makes, and at the end, with Batman's help, she gets a super duper Batgirl suit, and off you go. But if even his is bad, well, you know. So what's the deal here? Well, apparently it was bad. It didn't look that great for a theatrical release. They changed that from HBO Max to saying, well, we got to put this stuff in the theaters. This idea that it can go direct to streaming and can be profitable and whatnot. The money's at the theaters, especially since, you got to count in piracy and whatnot. So that's what they were going to do, but apparently it's just not up to snuff for a theatrical release, that sort of thing. But as I said, the plot is dependent on the Flash movie, unless they could have reshot it with Ben Affleck taking his place. I guess not. Perhaps the scenes for Aquaman are far more simpler to do. And so that's what they went, and it wasn't worth the trouble, I guess, because the movie must not be all that great. But Ezra Miller ruins everything. So this makes one wonder, will the Flash movie come out? You know, now it's a lot of money dumped in that one. Can they just scrap it? Can they reshoot it? Well, technically, yes, but the money involved, and what if it doesn't work? I mean, the sad thing about it, it's unlike the screen tests for Batgirl. A lot of the screen tests for the Flash sounds pretty positive. It's not bad. It's an interesting story with time travel and stuff. And that apparently, for the context of it, Ezra Miller does a good job. But his scandals has just burned all that away. So, it seems to be quiet about him for the moment, but there may be something else, and they may already know it. And it's like, we can't release this. We don't want to be attached to this guy. Because even if you're saying, well, it's a one and done for him, we'll recast it for a sequel or whatever, it's still, that's a problem. So, there's no Batgirl movie anymore. You've got Aquaman dealt with Ben Affleck, and apparently Amber Turd will be, perhaps that'll be reshot as well. Haven't heard that officially, but, stands to reason. And so what do you do with the Flash? If they delay it further, they can do the reshoots? Is it enough to do that? Would it take away from the quality of it? Can you recapture that to where it's just as good with someone else to do the performances and keep it in line with what people have already seen to say that it's not bad, it's a pretty good film? One can hope. In the meantime, boy, do they really need to talk to Henry Cavill. Whatever money's left on the table, I guess you better cobble that together for whatever it is he's demanding. Although I think that goes back to a lot of tension between the two entities over what happened. He pitched a movie for them with Macquarie, and they threw it back in their face, apparently holding out for J.J. Abrams, who really just defrauded the company. All that money spent to him, and he hasn't produced anything. And then he didn't have anything, so what does he do? He goes back to shielding and let's make white people uncomfortable and that kind of thing. That means he's got nothing. So all that, when you desperately needed something like a strong Superman franchise, and you didn't deliver. And boy, did you really need to have some kind of announcement like that to just make everybody forget all this Ezra Miller stuff. So I guess the potential is really high now that either the Flash movie gets canceled outright, like Batgirl here, or reshot, which would be pretty expensive considering all the money they've already dumped in it. So, wow, what a mess, you know. It's not Zaslav's fault. He's just the guy who's got to come up and clean up after these morons who didn't know what they were doing and sabotage the company. It's too bad about Leslie Grace. Maybe they'll revisit it with some other thing and weave her in with a new Batman project and that sort of thing. And there you go. And the new Supergirl. Perhaps they could bring her in for a Henry Cavill film where he meets his cousin and do it like that, you know. Whatever. But the Cavill deal, you need to be on that yesterday. For whatever the reason is. If it's impossible, he just won't come to terms, you're going to have to search for your new Superman. And get on that as fast as possible. As for Keaton, this is another thing that's really awful. I mean, they brought him in. It was going to be this big return of Keaton, and that should have been enough to have enough draw to it. I could understand that. I guess pursue what you should have done all along. Batman Beyond. Anyway, DCEU still remains cursed.